Welcome, everyone, to a podcast. That's right. We'll be running a podcast now. We'll continue uploading the video games every once in a while. But, I've been getting into football recently. Well, not recently. For about a few years now. And I figure I'll throw my hat in the ring with a bunch of these other podcasters and I'll just throw out my opinion on my team, the Atlanta Falcons, as well as some of the other teams around the league and see how they're doing. But in this introductory episode of this Falcons podcast, we ain't got an official name yet. We'll work on that. We're just going to be talking about a few subjects here. Won't be very long. Probably about 30 minutes is all. So, obviously, the first topic is the free agents. This free agency period has been wild, and I mean wild. Let me tell you this. When I first started getting into football, I never thought that Khalil Mack would be traded, even though that was last offseason. I never thought that Antonio Brown would be traded and that Le'Veon Bell would hit free agency. I never thought that Odell Beckham Jr. would be traded. And so, as a Julio Jones fan, I was kind of worried. But the Falcons in free agency, they did basically the same thing that they do every year. They're not going to be the big spenders that the fans want them to be, because they, in recent years, have been relying on paying the young talent, the players like Deion Jones and Ricardo Allen and so forth. So they made some moves. I mean, to me, these are considered splashes. But anyway, they signed two guards, James Carpenter and Jamon Brown. They signed a tight end, Luke Stalker, and a running back / returner, Kenyon Barner. And they made some, they have some re-signs too during the free agency period, which was tight end Logan Paulson and wide receiver Justin Hardy. So let's just get into the guards here. James Carpenter was formerly with the Jets. He was a first-round pick from the Seattle Seahawks. And what's interesting, though, is that with the signing of Jamon Brown, who was a former Giants player, it seems like we're going to be run heavy this year. And why I'm saying that is because we got some big boys now. These guys, I think, weigh about 320, 340. And the scheme that the Falcons run, the outside zone, under Shanahan and Steve Sarkisian, we used the lighter, more agile offensive linemen. So when we obviously go out and sign these players, these guards, it makes you think that we're going to be a little bit more run heavy. And I'm all right with these signings. The reason why I am, they have some nice strength to them. And that is good for us because under Shanahan and Steve Sarkisian, we weren't very good on third and short. We went to the pass a lot. Recent years, we went out of the Wildcat with Sanu, or as the fans will call it, the 12 gauge. We ran out of those a lot because we could not run up the gut, power our way into the end zone or for the first down. And so the two signings of these guys, they seem to be good, and they're getting paid starter money. So obviously behind them in terms of depth would be Wes Schweitzer, who is a good backup to have. Play him in a spot such as someone just goes down with an injury, he's going to be out for the rest of the game, might miss the next week. Schweitzer, he can do it. But if he has to play the whole season, we know what that's like. We don't want that. No. And then we also have Ben Garland. No, excuse me. Ben Garland was released. We have Brandon Fusco. There we go. That's the one. And Fusco, in just little spots last season, that at the time that he was playing with us before he got injured, he was decent. And that's what the Falcons do. They don't like drafting guards. They just go for the decent ones in free agency. And these two guys, well, they're decent. They hopefully will be the players that are just like, just be good enough to get us to the Super Bowl, man. And I think they can do that. They're big boys. They both have their own strengths and weaknesses, and especially in the NFC, AFC, like just talent's just getting ridiculous in terms of pass rush, and especially with this year's draft class, there's so many defensive line talent that this is going to get ridiculous, and these guys will have to step up. Luke Stalker, who was on the Titans, he's more of a blocking tight end. And there's a report that came out that the Falcons would more than likely be trying him out at fullback as well. So he'll probably be playing both tight end and fullback. And I mean, that's all right, because in the later part of the season, Logan Paulson started playing the fullback position. And we've missed Patrick DeMarco, an unsung hero from that 2016 offense. We really missed him. We just cannot replace him, and it's upsetting and it's sad because he's such a good player. But I think Luke Stalker will probably be a decent fullback on those certain plays, and probably just a good run defender if need to be, and especially if Ty Sambrailo is the starting guard, which it seems like he can be, but we just never know. And when the draft comes up, we'll see what happens with that. If we don't draft the tackle high, then it more than likely that Sambrailo is the starting tackle. So in a game where Sambrailo he's just getting beat, and it's just getting rough, and we just can't have enough time to run the ball or pass the ball, we got Logan Paulson and Luke Stalker that can come in and help him out. Really, these moves are helping the trenches, and that's what the Falcons wanted to do, was improve the trenches. Now, obviously, so far, Obviously, so far, we targeted the offensive line, and before the draft. Before we get into the draft plans, let's finish with Kenyon Barner, who was a running back from the Panthers. He's listed as a running back, and he can play running back, but let's be honest here, he's a returner. And the Falcons fans might remember that name and just remember what our punter Matt Bosher did in the last matchup of the 2018 season with the Carolina Panthers. Matt Bosher just laid him out, just chokeslammed him right straight to hell. It was a good move. It was a good play. But Kenyon Barner's coming in, and there's talk that he could become the third running back in the depth chart, but his stats just don't show that he's going to be an effective running back, and so he'll more than likely be the returner. And we'll just probably go out and draft a running back in the day 3 like we have since like forever. And a thing to note too, since now we'll get into the defensive draft plans. The Falcons have 9 picks in the 2019 NFL draft. And there's a report that came out a couple months ago, or last month, that said that the Falcons might use their two of their comp picks for a blocking tight end and a returner. And this was before free agency happened. When we signed Luke Stalker and Kenyon Barner, it kind of made you think that either we're going to be saving these picks for depth or the trade. We're going to trade up. In which Thomas Dimitroff, I mean, anything can happen with him. He might want to trade up, might go after someone. I don't think we'll trade up real too high, and it might just be like a plan B option here, where like, let's say we do want Cody Ford with our 14th pick, and there's just a string of tackles that are just keep getting picked. Falcons might be like, now hold on now, just wait. We'll trade you some of these picks so that we can get them. But I don't see that happening because of the depth on the defensive line. We don't have a lot of depth there, and especially since we let Bruce Irvin go and hit the free agency and let him sign with the Carolina Panthers, we ain't got a lot of good people there. I think right now we have 3: Tack McKinley, Vic Beasley, and Steven Means. And obviously some undrafted free agents, but these offseason moves towards the offensive line is just, it makes you wonder that this is going to be a defensive heavy draft. We might triple dip into the defensive line. There's so many ways that we can go in this draft that, all the mocks, they'll have us going for a tackle like Jonah Williams or Cody Ford. Some might have us drafting Ed Oliver or Brian Burns. I mean, I'm fine with all those options, to be honest, towards the defensive line. So with the defensive draft plans that we are having, we just got to now figure out who we're going to take. And, I mean, we won't know till the day of the draft. But it's just basically up to assumption that, hey, we're going to be defensive draft. There will be offensive players because we got to bring in like a wide receiver because we lost Marvin Hall, who was a decent receiver at best. He, come in a pinch and really help out the offense, stretch the defense. And we would have needed to draft another wide receiver had we not extended Justin Hardy, which also helps in the run game because he is one of the better run blocking wide receivers in the league. And he's kind of a red zone threat. He most of his targets come within the red zone. And most of his touchdowns, excuse me. And so we do need a wide receiver as well as a tackle. And maybe the Falcons might want to go after a guard in the later rounds and just bring him up slowly. We can, like I said, honestly, we can go in different directions. But I think the first couple picks in the draft will be towards the defensive line. And that's just because of all the moves that we made in the offseason. We really improved our offensive line from what we had the year prior in free agency. We got 2 blocking tight ends now. And we got a returner now too. And hopefully under the new special teams coordinator, we can really get some good yards out of this because it was getting ridiculous how bad we were in starting field position. But yeah, that's what I think the draft plans would be, just towards the defensive line first and foremost, and then we'll slowly upgrade into maybe like, here's that wide receiver that we might want. Here's a linebacker because we do need some linebackers, at least one. And maybe here's a little corner, just like one little cornerback, because we do need cornerback depth. You can't have too many corners. And so let's talk a little bit about the secondary in general. Recently, if you haven't seen, Ricardo Allen has a video up of him working out at the Flowery Branch. And, I'm happy to see that. I was worried about him. Like, obviously he had an Achilles injury. Took him out for the rest of the year. He got injured in week 3. Probably one of the reasons why our defense was so terrible for the longest time is because he is a leader on that defense. He sets people up to make the plays that they need to make. And without him, we've seen what can happen without him. And so I'm glad to see that he's coming back. It's a little questionable if he'll be ready to go for the start of the season. I don't think he'll be ready when training camp comes around. But, it's like I said, it's a little questionable because Achilles can take up to a year to fully be healed. So we'll see what the Falcons do with Ricardo Allen at the start of the season. And that's why I'm thinking a corner in the later rounds, because The plan that the Falcons want to do is move KZ down into the slot, be the nickel corner. And I mean, I'm alright with that. KZ has earned a spot on that field. The only thing I'm a little bit questioned about is his coverage skills, like man-to-man and whatnot. So we'll see how he holds up in the slot against some of the, star wide receivers that will line up in there and the speedy ones. We'll see what can happen there. But, I mean, I think that's a good spot for KZ because he is a ball hawk, and I think that's probably one of the best spots besides the safety position. And we'll be getting Keanu Neal back too, and that will definitely help the run game out. I know that everyone's talking about how the Falcons' run defense was terrible. Well, yeah, it's terrible when you lose your linebacker, your star linebacker, your star strong safety, and your free safety that lines everyone up to make the plays. Yeah, I think your run defense is gonna suck a little bit after all those injuries. So we're getting Neal back. And man, I'm just happy to see the start of the next season because I tell you what, when the season started and you get the news that Neal and Jones are out for the season or the majority of the season, that was just terrible. I was just like, well, I'm just upset. I'll continue to watch you guys, but I know that we won't get very far in the season. And 7-9, that's better than 6-10, 5-11. So, I got to take the good with the bad. And so, earlier I talked about the star players that are just getting traded or rumored to be traded. And speaking of him, who right there, Julio Jones, I was worried that he would be traded. Because right now, it's unpredictable. You may think that a player is safe, but he ain't. He's not safe. But on Friday, the Falcons reported that they are close to getting a deal done with Julio Jones to extend him out, give him that pay raise that he so deserves. Like, if I had all the money in the world, I'd give him most of that because he is inhuman. He just does things that, like, to me, he's the best wide receiver in the NFL. And the others, he's arguably the best. And for him to get paid, that's good. Because last season, during the offseason, during the whole holdout phase, it was getting a little bit scary because we kept getting close to the training camp, and he just he's not showing up to anything. Obviously, he normally doesn't show up to the voluntary camps, which, not a lot of players do that. But when training camp started to come and he missed out on the first day, it might not have been the first day he missed out, but it was close. I was worried that, like, well, I wonder what's going to happen now. Like, are we going to trade him, or are we just done with him now? And I'm glad that we're not, and I'm glad that Arthur Blank wants to keep him an Atlanta Falcon forever, which he so rightfully deserves. So, with Julio Jones getting his deal done, I think he should become the highest paid wide receiver in the NFL, and he probably will be, because he has some of the other wide receivers that are up there getting paid that amount of money. They just, like, I think the closest that could probably come in terms of output, I think, is Odell and Antonio Brown. And so a lot of those other ones, it just doesn't seem like it's right. And I get to where he was coming at too. Like, hey, I'm arguably the best wide receiver in the NFL. I should get paid like one. You're paying quarterbacks to be the best in the NFL? Well, I want to get paid like one of those. So, and if we do sign Jones, it frees up a little cap space to where we can maybe sign one more defensive line free agent, because there's still a few out there that could be helpful to this defense. Obviously, we missed out on Justin Houston, but from what he got paid, we weren't going to pay that. We have no cap space left. We have enough just to sign our draft guys. We have enough to have some left for the season due to injuries and whatnot. So, free agency for the Falcons is more than likely done unless a deal like this gets done with Julio Jones or with Grady Jarrett. If one of those happen, then maybe you'll see another free agent signing. But I wouldn't expect anything until those two things happen, or one of those two things happen. And the draft is, I think, it's only a couple months. It's only a couple weeks away. It's coming. I can't wait for it. I can't wait to see who we pick with our first round. It'll probably be someone that we never heard of before, which, is normal. So anyway, I hope you guys have a good rest of your week. This will probably be coming out on Monday. So you guys will have a good week. Hopefully you guys have one. Make sure you go check out some of the other videos on the channel and subscribe, because there will be more. I'll eventually get to the rest of the NFL in a later episode, but as of right now, this is just the way it's got to be. So with that, I thank you guys very much, and goodbye.